and that's where things go sideways. So a few months ago, I was looking for a number 7 because I needed a number 7. I needed a joiner plane. I've been looking around for quite some time. Really hadn't had much luck, finding a joiner that was reasonably priced. I thought I could restore. And a few months ago, I did come across one. It's kind of a mystery plane, although I figured out the mystery at this point. Uh, but this is it here. So I'll get some more detailed photos of that to pop up here. It is a 22 inches in length. It is an inch and 3/8 blade width. It's a nice sturdy plane. It has a couple nicks here and there in the toe and the knob, some scratches, but not much. And it has a chip breaker that has a patent date of the 1800s, and it's a patent for L. Bailey. So my first thought was this might be a Bailey plane, and then later on I found on the blade itself, it's got a Stanley and Level trademark, but it's very faint, hard to see. And then the plane itself has absolutely no markings. If we look at the front, there's no numbers, there's no patent dates, there's basically nothing underneath the frog and towards the back of the plane. It is a smooth bottom plane, and it's very flat, and it just seemed like it'd make a good worker. So let's get to restoring this, and we're going to get to the bottom of what kind of plane this is, and some of you may already know. So let's get started. So one of the odd things is it has a twisted lateral adjustment, and as far as I know, none of the Stanleys, Baileys have that. Down here on the lever cap, or the chip breaker, I don't know if we get that focus on this, I'll get a better picture of that, but it's got L. Bailey patent, December 24th, 1867. The blade is in really good shape. There's no pitting. It's got some nicks on the end down here, so we'll take care of that. We'll clean up the blade best we can. I want to keep some of the patina to it. So the chip breaker is not in horrible shape. It's got some coloration. I did try to flatten that real quick. That's why it's a little shiny. And then this is where the frog sits. And there is a strange hole right here. I don't know what that's from. Let's go ahead and get the tote and knob off. It's got a single screw for the knob. So we've got some chip out the tote, a couple chips on the side. I'm okay with that. I'm not trying to turn this into a shelf queen. I want to use this plane. So we're going to clean up the tote and knob. One of the first things I should have recognized was here on the bottom. We've got on the lever cap itself, we have two numbers. We have 418 and 422. And I don't know anything about what that would have come from at the time. I do know now. So that's kind of to take the mystery out of it. I went on to Facebook into one of the Stanley plane collector groups, and I posted some pictures, hoping that they would give me some insight into what kind of plane this was. And almost immediately, they got back to me and said, "It's a Sergeant," and not a Stanley plane. It's a Sergeant, and it's a model 442, which is here on the bottom of the lever cap. So, mystery solved. What had me going was when I put this into, basically on the internet, they've got a bunch of places where you can type different planes. And the only thing that was really clear when I first got it was that Bailey, up here on the front, the patent date, and I thought that it might be one of the Bailey planes, because Bailey did make planes at a period of time when he wasn't with Stanley. So if you go through and you look at the types, if you type and you look and there's no lift here around the knob, if it's just flush, and there's no markings on the front, Bailey, and if there are no patent dates on the body itself, and you continue to click through, as you get through it, you get down to looking at this, and it was telling me that it was a Type 3. And super rare, and it was supposedly Type 3s were only made for about a year or two, and they had changed the frog, and all the frogs were based on the number 3, and it was a smaller frog. They were trying to make them more interchangeable. So, but I was so off the beaten path, because I was going that it was a Bailey right off the beginning, and that wasn't the case. So, mystery solved. It is a Sergeant 422. It's exactly 22 inches long. It is 2 7/8 wide. The blade and the chip breaker are 2 3/8. So basically, let's get to cleaning this thing up and see what we can make a user out of it. So this number 7 cleaned up beautifully. I mean, I was really surprised. The Japanning or the paint that somebody had placed on this previously, or just the original Japanning, because this thing is in fantastic shape. But as I was getting everything here and getting it assembled, it's looking really nice. I'm very happy with it. I've used the like a very highly oiled wax in the beginning, and then I put a harder wax, a shop wax with the carnauba in it, and got those knobs straightened up. Assembly goes really smoothly, getting it all together, and that's where things go sideways. So when we get to the point where we're going to start to try and fit the blade and chip breaker that turns out to be a Stanley blade and chip breaker that was obviously switched out at some point on the journey from, you know, a user plane to wherever it ended up, to finally a collector. And then the collector's brother-in-law sold me this plane out of his garage for a pretty good deal. The chip breaker and blade from an early type 1 through 3, I think it was a type 2 or 3 Stanley, ended up on this plane. Then this is where I had to do some research and find out that a chip breaker for the Sargent line, the 400 line, is not compatible with a Stanley Bailey chip breaker. The distance from the chip breaker end to the adjustment, depth adjustment, is a different length. The hole's the same size. The hole where the chip breaker locks down is a different shape. It is an oval shape versus a more extended circle, you know, with flat sides from the Stanley. So when you try to adjust the frog and get everything into the plane, you don't have the blade is extending too far, and it hangs out the bottom plane. You can never retract it far enough that it does not cut. So it's very minuscule, but I took some older blades and put them in. I took some different Stanley chip breaker and blade combinations that I had that are all different vintages, and none of them worked out. And that's where I finally got on the internet and did some research and found out that that is the incompatibility. Now, most all replacement Stanley blades or Stanley style bedrock, or not bedrock, but Bailey or bedrock, the blade will work, but the chip breaker is the key component. So if you happen to pick up one of these Sargents, you're going to want to make sure that you have the original chip breaker. Otherwise, you're going to be on a hunt for that. What I've done is I've found what I need, and I've ordered it, and we're going to get back to it, and then we'll be able to test this plane when I've got the right parts that we can actually test the function. But I have to say, this thing turned out beautifully, and from what I can tell, this plane, it's a, and I found out that the plane itself, under the Sargent naming protocols, this is a 400 series plane, and it is a 422. So the 4 is the generation of planes that is kind of their premium line from the late 1800s into the early 1900s. And the VBM, very best made, and also I've seen that it's verified bench made, but of course very best made seems to be what the majority of people are using that abbreviation for. But they're all the same. They're all from the same series of plane. So that was more of a marketing thing. So as far as very best made goes versus 400s, they're all the 400 line. They're all the premium plane that Sargent made. So we're going to get back to this with a part 2 when I have all the correct parts, and we'll see how that goes.